Shemai. Today I've been very fortunate. I've been invited into a friend's small Christmas tree plantation. It's a really cold sort of winter's day. Christmas is only a few days away, and I just thought it'd be interesting to see what it is what a Christmas tree's all about. Christmas trees are always evergreen, and we know them at Christmas. They're decorated, they're put in houses, they're put outside. You can have them in pots, you can have them cut, and you can also have artificial trees. But what I've noticed just walking through this small plantation is that they're not all the same. They're made up of different species, and Christmas trees generally are made up of like fir trees or pine trees or spruces. And in this actual small plantation here, there are 3 different types. So with fir trees, you generally have the Nordman, which are in here, which is actually Britain's most popular Christmas tree. You can have the noble fir or the Fraser fir. With pine trees, you have the lodgepole or the white pine. And actually with spruces, you get the white spruce, I'm tangled up, the Norway spruce, and actually even the blue spruce. Now, the reason we have all these different ones is because they all have a different appeal. So some of them have characteristics in that they won't drop their needles so quickly. Some of them smell nicer. Some of them have soft needles, if you can see by there. So people have different preferences, but in the recent times, the Nordman fir has become the most popular. Now, the Norway spruce is the traditional Christmas tree with those sort of sharper needles. But unfortunately, these are not quite so popular because they lose their needles in warm rooms and they drop them on the carpet, and people don't like hoovering them up. Fir and pine trees are better because they don't drop their needles so readily as these, and they kind of, some of them, like I say, can smell a little bit better. They have that fresh sort of pine kind of smell. Growing Christmas trees is a long-term plan. It's not something you can just decide to do overnight. Now, what I like about this particular little plantation is that it's on some really quite steep ground that was once overgrown with brambles and bracken, and it's actually been converted into this little plantation, and it seems to be thriving. Now, I say it's a long-term plan because for example, Norway spruce, they take around about 5 to 6 years to reach a size that are usable as Christmas trees. So we're talking around about 6 foot. Obviously they can be cut a little bit shorter, but for the other Christmas trees, it's generally between sort of 6 to 12 years to reach a size that is saleable. And it's amazing to think that, you know, if you look down here, you've got these little small ones like this, relatively freshly planted, and they'll end up like these beauties here. Okay, so why do we even have Christmas trees? Where's it all come from? So evergreen plants and trees are considered special, and they always have been. It's this idea that they're magical, they're powerful, that they symbolise eternal life. In the bleakness of winter, when everything's lost its leaves, they're still looking strong, and it's sort of seen as almost magical. But it became popular in Britain in the early 19th century. But it actually came from Germany, and it was a big tradition in Germany long before that, actually for centuries before. But it became really popular, really based on a medieval play about Adam and Eve, basically. So it was known as the Paradise Tree, and it would be hung with apples to represent the Garden of Eden. And it would be set up in houses on the 24th of December, which is the religious feast day of Adam and Eve. And they would hang wafers on it, and these were later replaced by cookies and edible things. And it was all sort of linked to this idea of Adam and Eve. Now, later, candles were often added to symbolise Christ as the light of the world. And in the same room, in Germany would be this idea of a Christmas pyramid, which is basically a sort of a shelf, a set of shelves in the shape of a pyramid, and on this would be things like candles, a star, there would be treats and things. And then by the 16th century, these two ideas of the paradise tree and the Christmas pyramid were merged into this single idea of a Christmas tree that would be decorated with a sort of a link to Christianity and to Jesus. Now, although this was popular in Germany and German immigrants who'd come to Britain brought this tradition with them, it was actually during the reign of Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. Now, Prince Albert, being born in Germany, had brought this tradition with them, and they really embraced it, I guess, and it became such a big thing. But I guess the key turning point was that media was starting to become available. So there were photographs of beautifully decorated Christmas trees in Windsor Castle, and postcards and things would show these pictures of these fantastic Christmas trees, and of course everybody then wanted them. Now, although not everybody could afford or could get hold of evergreen trees, particularly large ones like these, they would get smaller things that could be put on tables, like a table ornament, and obviously cost less and was more simple to decorate. So from 1841 onwards, Christmas trees became very fashionable, and Victorian trees would be decorated with toys and gifts and candles and sweets and cakes, and hung with paper chains and ribbons to make them look more and more, I guess, as they do today. And then by the early 1900s, this idea of putting candles on them, when electricity started to become available, then those candles were replaced by electric fairy lights, and this led to the next step in its kind of evolution, which was outdoor Christmas trees, decorating them outdoors, and they became very, very popular from that point on. And the first ones were in America, and in fact the first reported outdoor Christmas tree was in Pasadena in California in 1909, and then it obviously spread across America and really to many places throughout the world. Now, the world's tallest Christmas tree, and from the Guinness Book of Records, was a Douglas fir, or Suga menzii, which was in, where was it now? Northgate Shopping Centre in Seattle in Washington in December 1950, and this was the tallest outdoor one, and it was colossal. It was 221 foot tall, which is 63.36 metres tall. It was massive. But possibly the most famous and well-known Christmas tree is erected in Trafalgar Square every year, and it has been since 1947, when it was donated by the people of Oslo, Oslo being the capital of Norway. Now, it was donated by them as a kind of thank you to the people of London and their appreciation for Britain's help during World War II. And that tradition has actually carried on up until this very day. Now, we've already talked about some of the symbolisms of Christmas trees, but in Christianity it is this symbol. Christmas trees are the symbol of birth and resurrection of Jesus Christ. The branches are the emblem of immortality, this idea that they're evergreen and they'll go on forever. And also because they can be, the needles on them can be quite spiky, they can also be symbolic of the crown of Christ, the crown of thorns. Now, Christmas trees have and do continue to be very popular, real ones, but in the 1930s artificial trees were developed, and people choose what they want. Like I say, you can get cut trees which are cut off and they'll just last the one Christmas, or you can get potted trees which can be planted in the garden or kept in the pot and brought in every year, or artificial trees. Now, they all have their sort of pros and cons, and people have their own choices. But interestingly, when you think of Christmas trees, I know it kind of divides people and think, oh, it's awful, you're growing these trees to be cut down. But in my mind, it's very similar to coppicing, and we've spoken about coppicing where you cut it off and it grows back again. Now, for everyone that you see in here, these will be cut, but they'll be replanted. And as I've actually moved around in this plantation, in amongst there are little small tiny ones that have been planted to replace it. So it is an ongoing cycle. Now, one of the problems, I guess, with real Christmas trees is that there is going to be a lot of waste. There's 6 to 8 million trees sold in Britain each year. Now, if they're potted ones, great, they can grow on. But if they're cut ones, something has to be done with that. Now, that could end up being a colossal amount of landfill. But there are schemes now, and lots of schemes, where they can be taken, they can be chipped up, and they can be used on your garden as mulch. So it's this continual cycle. Now, 40% of families still in Britain still buy real Christmas trees. Like I say, it's a personal choice, and it's down to the feel, the look, the smell of them. Christmas trees have become a bit of clearly a business, but also there's a bit of a science to it. These trees here have already had one prune, and the idea is that they're pruned to increase some of the growth where they've been cut to give them a bushier look, and also there is an optimum shape. An A shape is the optimum shape, and believe it or not, 60 degrees is the perfect angle for your A-shaped Christmas tree. Who would have known? And it's also said that the perfect shape is that the height is double the width. So maybe something to look out for when you're getting your Christmas tree. So there we go. Something that we take for granted every year. The Christmas tree gets put up, we decorate it, we think about how lovely it looks. But there's an awful lot more to Christmas trees than just that short spell that we have them over the Christmas period. So when you're in your house, and you're looking at your Christmas tree, or you're out and about and you see an outdoor one, just think about everything else that's linked to them. And it just leaves for me to say, Dymuniad ai gorau am Nadolig Llawen, best wishes for a happy Christmas.